What's up, guys? I'm EJ and I'm joined by Kendall. Thank you so much for checking out this edition of our virtual NBA Draft War Room. Today, we're going to be talking about the Oklahoma City Thunder. Because the Oklahoma City Thunder, man, this was a feel-good story in this NBA season. When they traded Paul George, when they traded Russell Westbrook, a lot of people thought this was a team that you'd see near the bottom of the NBA. Maybe they'd be drafting in the top 5 or 10 in this draft. But they surprised a lot of people. The ghost of Chris Paul was not going to allow them to tank. And they ended up having a really, really great season. Pushed the Houston Rockets to 7 games. Were just right on the doorstep of actually advancing out of the first round. We saw great play from obviously Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, who really emerged after being traded by the Clippers and landing in OKC. So, interesting position now for Sam Presti and this Thunder team. Do you continue on this road with this team that appears to have somewhat of a ceiling in this Western Conference, or do you still work towards a rebuild that maybe means the departure of some key veterans that were instrumental to their success this season? So, interesting stuff going on in Oklahoma City.
Yeah. I mean, look, Sam Presti. Um, this is he's not. Look, the last time he overtook a rebuild, it went really well, to say the least. So I don't think he's a stranger to rebuilds, and I don't think he's afraid of rebuilds. And look, they have a treasure trove of picks that they got from the Clippers. So I think that if you're the Thunder coming into this draft, you have to talk about the option of trading up, which is going to be there, because they have players like you mentioned, but then they also have a ton of draft picks in a draft that's going to be feasible for them to trade up. So I think that that's an option that you have to discuss. But look, it's going to be interesting. You said, I mean, look, Billy Donovan's out, new coach is coming in. Presti, obviously, again, not afraid of rebuilding, but he's also not afraid of drafting. So. He's got one of the best draft records of any executive in the league, of every executive in the league. He has one of the premier draft records. And so, look, you have to feel comfortable if you're a Thunder fan that regardless of whether or not they stay in pat at 25 or they move up in the draft, depending on how high they move up, that they're going to get a player that can help them. So, if I'm a Thunder fan, I'm excited because, this is going to be this is a rebuild, I would say. I don't think that this is a case where they're trying to necessarily draft a player that's gonna, help them be an instant impact. This guy might play right away because of the makeup of the roster, but he may not be a guy that's playing on a playoff team.
Yeah, I mean, I agree pretty much with that assessment. Obviously this was a team that made the playoffs, and they had a really kind of a Cinderella run. But considering where their roster stands, considering where their money situation stands, and the assets that they have, I think that the future has to be take credence, maybe even over putting just the best roster possible for next season. This is a team that's got to be thinking long term, and I think it's kind of a weird position to be in. Being 25, trying to figure that kind of terrain out, but I think that's where they kind of have to look. So it's going to be an interesting offseason for the Thunder. They have a lot of big decisions, so let's get right to them. So the Thunder finished this season 44-28. Once again, that was a really great season. They were 5th in the Western Conference. No one expected them to play that well, for sure. They own picks number 25 and 53 in this upcoming draft. Team needs, I put outside shooting as a team need. And there's no secret. This was not a team that really relied much on the 3-ball. They relied much more on dribble penetration and ball movement. They were on 27th in three-pointer field goals attempts and three-point field goals made. So they're going to definitely need to improve the outside shooting, especially considering some of the free agents they have. Rebounding, also an issue. A little, you think Steven Adams, he's a good rebounder, but they really don't have a lot of other bigs that you consider, high-end rebounders. They were 30th in the NBA in offensive rebounds, so there were a lot of one-and-done offensive possessions. They're going to have to improve that aspect of the ball. I put interior scoring as well. Again, besides the guards and Gallinari, they really didn't have much people who scored in the paint, so that's something to maybe look at in the front court. And I put scoring wings as well, because, we don't know what our guy Lou Dort, who's been a favorite of ours.
Lou Dort.
We were outraged that he was
not. You guys heard about
year.
Lou Dort if you watched our video last year.
Yeah, we were outraged that he was not drafted, and he played outstanding this season for them, and he showed that he should have been drafted. But besides Dort, and he's not really a scorer, they really don't have much in terms of scoring wings. So I think they're going to have to figure that out as well. Free agents, Danilo Gallinari expected to be one of the kind of prized possessions of this kind of depleted free agent class, and considering the cash strapped Clay Bennett situation, I don't know how much he's going to be willing to fork over to keep Gallo in OKC. Andre Robertson, also a free agent. Nerlens Noel, Kevin Hervey, and Devon Hall were on two-way deals. Primary decision maker, obviously, Sam Presti. We mentioned it. Great resume when it comes to drafting. One of the best in the NBA, if not the best. Truly one of the better front office people. So, Kendall, coming into this pick at number 25, where would you go?
I mean, for me, I think the biggest need for this team is I think they need more wings that are really athletic but don't know how to really do much of anything else. I mean, yeah, they have Terrence Ferguson and Hamidou Diallo and Lou Dort, but I think they need like a Cassius Stanley or a
man.
Or a Josh Green.
We just gave Sam Presti his flowers. Now you trying to clown him on?
Tobias Ramsey.
Hey, Tobias Ramsey can shoot. Don't disrespect Tobias Ramsey. He's a very good 3-point shooter.
Need more athletes. No, yeah. Look, I mean, I agree. I think the skill level, the skill profile of this Thunder roster needs to improve. A lot of it came from the vet guys. Chris Paul, Danilo Gallinari. We don't know if either one of those guys are going to be there.
Dennis
so they're
Schroeder
going to need. Yeah, and Dennis Schroeder as well. So they need to improve in that aspect of the roster. Look, I think there's two European big men that I would look at if I were the Thunder at this spot. Two completely different prospects in terms of win now versus project. The one obvious guy being Oleksiy Pokusevski, aka Poku, who, look, I'm sure the Thunder are looking at. I think there's been a little bit of rumblings that he could be in the mix for the Thunder, and he fits the kind of profile that you would think the Thunder would look at this spot, because again, they're not really trying to win necessarily. They've always had a good player development system, so you think that he would be a good fit for them. I'm not the biggest Poku fan in general. We haven't talked much about Poku, but I don't trust the Greek B division tape that I've seen from him. I didn't trust the Giannis tape, and Giannis was great, so maybe I'm wrong about that. But I have my doubts about Poku's abilities. Plus, his numbers, are iffy. So look, I'm not as high on Poku, but I think the Thunder of all teams in the league may be the most equipped to kind of have him sit and wait, and maybe even play him in scenarios where he's not ready to play, or he's not effective right away. The other guy I'm looking at, who I think this may be a little bit of a reach, but I'm sure you're going to like this guy, is your boy Killian Tilly, who I think gives you a little bit of the Gallinari punch. I think Killian Tilly, obviously the injury concerns are real, and for a team that needs like players, I don't know if you're taking a risk on a guy like Tilly, who is injury prone. But look, I think Tilly is one of the more undervalued players in this draft. I think a fully healthy Killian Tilly is a borderline lottery pick, especially in today's NBA. I think you can make that case given his.
You can make the case for sure.
Yeah, I mean, given his skill set, and maybe if he's not a lottery pick, he's a guy that's drafted in the 20s that is really good. That ends up being a lottery type talent. So, and obviously the Thunder drafted Domantas Sabonis, who also from Gonzaga, who also helped them a European big man. So, those are two guys that I'm initially looking at if I'm the Oklahoma City Thunder.
Yeah. So Poku, again, we talked only a little bit about him. The more studying, the more research, I lean away from Poku as a guy that I really love in this draft. I just think he's such a question mark. I mean, it's are the skills there? Yes, and can't teach his size with that skill set. But putting that together and making that a functional NBA player just takes a lot of work from where he is right now. I'm not saying that it can't happen, but I'm not risking my job for it.
He reminds me of Dragan Bender, which is both good and bad. Because look, Dragan Bender was drafted in the top 5, so like. Yeah. I mean, look, shouts out to him, because Dragan Bender was a top 5 pick. But, I mean, I hated Dragan Bender coming out of Croatia. And I mean,
And
obviously, you see how
and to
that
be
ended
when we
up.
say hate, we say just hit a player. Bender,
Fair,
sure he's a
fair
fine
enough.
young man.
I hated,
Sure he's
yeah,
a
I hated
cool
him as
dude.
a player. Yeah, I mean,
Right,
yeah, nothing wrong with Dragon Bender.
right.
But I didn't get I didn't get him as a top 5 pick,
Neither did I.
and I don't really get Poku as a guy being talked about in the lottery, um, because he has some of the same strengths and some of the same things that you look at and you say, oh, this is impressive. The skill level for a guy his size, he's even a little bigger than Dragon Bender, but just
Yeah,
so raw.
I would argue Poku even has more skills, passing, dribbling than even Bender.
Yeah,
I just
yeah. Bender, he had flashes. This guy has like
yeah,
real. I
Bender
think.
probably looked like a little bit of a better shooter, but yeah, I like Poku again. I'm not saying he can't be a really good NBA player. He can because again, the skill set aside, you can't teach. Or you can teach someone the skill set, but like to have it that early, that young, and be that tall and lanky, can't really. That's a very rare combination. It's just making that a functional NBA player based on where he is with his strength profile, injury issues that he's already had. I'm not risking my life on that. The Presti has the capital to make that chance, so I can see him doing that. I wouldn't do that if I'm me because I'm not saying Presti. Uh, so this was a tough pick for me, but I ended up kind of coming to the conclusion that look, they were a team that really, as you said, they have a lot of wing guys that don't really do much besides run and jump and play defense, and that's not bad. It's only bad that those are the only guys you have. In a vacuum, it's good to have guys who run are energetic and can defend and can guard multiple positions and get out on the break, especially with
And guess who's
guards
the
like Paul and Schroeder and Alexander. You say goes Alexander. That you want guys like that. Sorry, what were you gonna say,
and
Kendall?
no, I was gonna say, that sounds familiar because I feel like we had a similar conversation about this, and we've had these conversations over the years about the Orlando Magic, having drafted like that for the last couple of years, when Rob Hennigan was running the team. Oh wait, Rob Hennigan is Sam Presti's lieutenant right now, so no wonder this team's been drafting a bunch of run and jump guys for the last 5 years.
Yeah, yeah, they
And
can't.
there's nothing wrong with that. Again, Lou Dort he wasn't a draft pick,
Yeah, he
but
wasn't a draft pick, but
yeah,
he
he was
was
a
a
great
good
pickup.
pick. Good pickup.
Yeah,
Yes.
he's a great pickup. No, shout out to Rob Henning and shout out to Sam Presti. But and again, he's better than Diallo and Terrence Ferguson. But like, at some point you gotta add some skill
Yeah.
to your depth as well.
I ended up landing on Desmond Bain as the guy I would probably be my first target. Um, it was between Bain and another guy who I'll get to in a second, but I leaned towards Bain because one, again, the shooting was an issue. They're not a great 3-point shooting team. Bain, excellent shooter from mid range and 3 pointers. Catch and shoot, he can make threes. He's shown ability to even hit pull up threes and pull up
Yeah,
jumpers.
on the
So
move. Yeah,
and the one thing I keep mentioning now, it may not be as needed on this particular team, but people are sleeping on Bain's ability as a passer. He is maybe the best
yes,
passing shooting guard in this draft. He's one of the best passers in this draft.
yeah,
We kind of because we're all penciling all these guys as like 3-and-D type guys. We're kind of only
yeah,
looking at him from that potential. But
yeah.
as a playmaker, Bain is extremely underrated. I think by a lot of people
And
studying this
it,
draft. So I just really like the concept of adding Bain to those other guys you have, who again you mentioned are kind of redundant. So I think Bain would be a really great fit. I think he's super underrated. The other guy I did think about though strongly, and I would consider if Bain was off the board, was my guy Balmero. I think that Leandro Balmero would also be a really great fit. He's not a great shooter. I've hoped that he could improve on his shooting, but I think that he is once again away from the kind of wings they have. This guy is a real playmaker. This is a guy who's going to be an aggressive attacker of the rim. This is a guy who could maybe even give me some lead guard potential, and I can move Shea and move Schroeder around. I don't know what Chris Paul where he's going to be, so I can't assume Chris Paul's on the roster with how I build this team. But I just think Barmero's a stud. I think that when you get to around the 20 to 30 range, you're looking for a wing. I think all of these teams should really be considering him. He's one of my favorite players in the draft as well. So those are the two top guys. Another guy we'll look at if you don't go wing and you want to swing big. I did mention think about Jaden McDaniels too, because I think that he would be your your replacement potentially for Gallinari. I think that honestly they're kind of similar players in that regard.
Yeah, and look, honestly, one thing I will say is that I need to apologize to Oklahoma City Thunder's brass because I neglected to mention that the wing spot they do have Abdel Nader, who does give them, that highly skilled wing forward. But
Yeah. Okay. Sure.
uh, no, I mean, look, I like Bane. When you talked about his playmaking, that's something that I think sometimes with these guys that we have later in the draft, we pigeonhole them into archetypes. We pigeonhole them into their what's their best skill. Because look, if they're not going in the lottery, then clearly they can't do anything besides whatever they're best at. And that's not always the case. Sometimes you have guys that are, multi-faceted or versatile players that don't go in the lottery. And Desmond Bain he definitely does fit into that category. Another wing prospect that I do want to introduce to the court, someone that we haven't talked about yet on this in this series, is a kid who might go in the second round, but I would be willing to draft this guy in the first round. I'm high on this guy, maybe higher than most. Is the guy I call the Nigerian Harden, uh, Jordan Nwora out of Louisville, who is I think a really really good scorer in this draft, and really being kind of underlooked. I mean, he's a really good shooter. Didn't really come into Louisville, or really didn't have that kind of reputation. As a pure shooter, really didn't come into the season with a reputation as a pure shooter. Really shot the lights out this year for Louisville. Similar to Desmond Bain in terms of that shot versatility, in terms of being able to shoot off the dribble, shoot off the catch, shoot off movement. Jordan Nwora offers you that, but he's also a really strong guard who can get to the rim, finish at the rim. He's a guy where I don't know if he's ever gonna be a superstar, but I think that he's a guy that could really help them. And again, we talk about adding that skill level at the wing spot. I think Jordan Nwora is gonna sneakily one of the more skilled wings in this draft, and as a guy knows he's played against the top competition his entire career in college. Like some of these guys that are the higher skill guys. I mean, Desmond Bain. It's not like TCU's in the Big 12, which is a tough conference to be fair. But he's a TCU guy. Isaiah Joe from Arkansas. We're talking about guys that haven't played on championship caliber teams. Jordan Nwora has played at a premier program in Louisville. Has played on national TV all the time, and has played against the likes of Duke, Carolina. I mean, I don't know what to make of Carolina last year, but played against Duke, Carolina, Syracuse, Florida State,
Yeah. FSU. Right.
Kentucky. Yeah, Kentucky every year. So he's seen all the best competition in college basketball, and he's held his own against the best competition in college basketball consistently. So Jordan Nwora is a guy that I really think is being undervalued, and I think if you're a Thunder team that needs that scoring punch at the wing, I really like Jordan Nwora.
Yeah, Jordan Nwora, he's not getting as much talk as probably he should, considering he's got good size. 6'7", pretty solid on that. And as you mentioned, he's a great shooter. I mean, he's a knockdown shooter. The guy's a bucket. And if you watch Louisville the last 2-3 years, he was kind of just a constant, reliable scorer, a veteran kind of. I like college players that play with a sense of calm in those big games you talk about.
Very steady presence.
Like there are some players where when you're doing prep work on them, you want to see, okay, how do you play in this environment, this tough environment, this big game, and I don't want to see kind of scatterbrain kind of play. One of the guys, and I don't want to dump on this guy, but one of the guys that concerned me because of that was Josh Jackson, a guy who I just thought was all over the place in some of these big high-profile games. Sometimes it was good, but then sometimes it was his emotions running out of control, not playing within himself. And
right.
In the NBA, the lights are on every time you step on the court. Sometimes in college basketball, you may really have maybe 5 really huge games besides the NCAA tournament if you make it. Besides that, you maybe have 4 or 5, unless you're Duke or North Carolina or some of these other schools. 4 or 5 really big games all season. I want to see how you play in those big games and how do you play under those bright lights. And again, Nwora is one of those players. I mean, he's one of the more steady players in college basketball, and he's been that way for a while. So I agree. I think that he's someone that could be undervalued, and I think that he's like the exact opposite of what kind of wings they have, which I'm
Look,
thinking
man, once
good.
people,
That's what they they should be looking for,
yeah,
someone different than the guys they have.
yeah, he got messed up by there being no Olympics because once people start seeing him, putting buckets on Devin Booker playing for Nigeria, there'll be another conversation about Jordan Orr.
What do you guys think the Oklahoma City Thunder should do in this draft? Make sure you guys leave a comment about what you should do. Do you like the idea of any of the guys we mentioned? Should they do? What do you think about Nwora? Again, a guy we haven't even talked about on this draft for. Would you be willing to take him? Do you trade down maybe to take him? What about some of the other guys? Poku, Tilly, Bain, or Balmaro? Make sure you leave a comment on this video about what you think should happen. Make sure you like this video if you did enjoy it. And of course, subscribe to the channel, New Generation Media, for more draft coverage. That's going to do it for now. For Kendall, I'm EJ. Take it easy, guys. Peace.